Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real, a podcast focused on the fascinating world of near-death experiences, spirit communication, and all things metaphysical and spiritual. The mission of this project is to share messages of hope and inspiration with others, and to spread the word that death is only an illusion. Thank you for being here with an open heart and mind. I wish you peace, light, and love always. Hey, Magic is Real listeners. I haven't seen you in a while. Where have you been? Just kidding. It was me who was absent for a while. I am just checking in. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is a podcast where we discuss spiritually transformative experiences, proof of afterlife, spirit communication, and all things spiritual journey, focusing on NDEs, near-death experiences, but open to a lot of spiritual discussions. So, because I was traveling and had a whole travel debacle, and I'm still recovering from the exhaustion of that, and it is spring, so it appears that I'm not getting a lot of messages back when I'm reaching out to guests because it is spring. People are traveling, people have a lot going on, kids are getting out of school, all kinds of things. So I decided that I would check in just to let you know, for one thing, that I'm still here. There will still be more interviews coming up, plenty of them. But in the meantime, while we're in this sort of limbo hiatus, if you will, I wanted to come to you to talk about the blessings in adversity and trust and faith. There is this expression, well, there are several of them. Things fall apart so better things can come together. When one door closes, another door opens. These are great cliches. They're cliches for a reason. They make a lot of sense. But when it's you who's going through disappointment, your plans were shattered, your dreams fell apart, somebody got sick, maybe you got sick, all of these things that come into play when you think you know where you're headed, and then all of a sudden everything falls apart and nothing is as you planned it or hoped it would be. So it can be very disappointing when relationships fall apart, losing jobs or job opportunities, dreams and hopes fell apart, health challenges. So when it's happening to you, it's really hard to be in a place of faith and trust, I find. You know that there has to be some sort of, if you're a spiritual person, as I am, and so I say you, meaning people like me, like-minded people, you know that there's some sort of order to things and that you're being redirected. Or if you don't, consider that this isn't, everything's falling apart, nothing's ever going to be the same again. And this is the end of my life. This is it. Everything, nothing worked out. I'm devastated. I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. But consider that this is not a failure. This is a redirect. And also consider that things don't happen in our timing. They happen in divine timing, in timing that is in our best and highest good. So let me give you an example of this. 2.5 years ago, I know some of you have heard me say this, so I won't go into all the details because I have shared this in another episode. But I was a working voice actor and was doing very well in my career. I was excited. I had worked so hard and for so many years to get there. I think it was 15 years of struggle, and finally I was on the way. Well, that's when I developed a vocal disorder, long story short. And just about 3 or 4 years into my success and all this abundance that I had finally created for myself, everything was going swimmingly. Everything was in balance. And I remember thinking, well, not to be negative, but what goes up must come down. What goes down must come up. Things are cyclical. So I knew as I was riding my bike, I was in Costa Rica. I had the money to take myself there. I was riding a bike along the beach with the wind in my hair. And I remember thinking, this is wonderful. And I'm so grateful. just expect that it won't always be where it is at this moment. Not that wasn't a negative thought. It was more of a realistic thought. But this is the peak. This is it. And I was so grateful. I said, remember to be grateful because it's not always going to be this way, but you don't know what that's going to look like. So, long story short, I developed a vocal disorder. I had to stop doing voiceover. Devastating. With 8 agents and all these clients, couldn't work anymore, could barely get a sentence out. My vocal cords were spasming. I had chronic vocal strain. My voice was not going to do the work anymore. It was equivalent to an athlete's injury, where if you play football, for example, every single day and you train and train and train 10 hours a day, you're going to most likely wear out your joints, sustain an injury. I was so devastated. Not only was this my financial stability threatened, this was also everything I'd worked for. This was also my identity. This was what I love to do more than anything. So I remember just thinking, what now? I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. I can't. This is what I've worked for all these years. This is what I have struggled for all these years. This is what I've worked all these side hustle jobs, catering and driving for Lyft and babysitting. I had to sneeze. We're cutting that out. I just didn't see any hope. People said, well, what are you going to do next? And all I could think of was, am I going to go back to temping again, working in offices in LA, driving an hour to work and an hour back, doing something I don't love, doing something I hate, in fact, not being able to have autonomy, not being able to have my own freedom, and sort of being put back in a cage is what it felt like. So I was beside myself, completely devastated. What I didn't realize is I was in severe grief, deep, deep grief. Not only was I suffering greatly physically, because all of this was caused by an intestinal disorder and gastritis and reflux. I also this was putting a strain on my relationship with my partner. So it just felt as though everything that I had built for myself was falling apart. Well, because I needed to sink into faith, because I had no choice, and I started to read a lot of spiritual books and meditate and do yoga to calm, just to keep myself sane, really, I began the process of studying mediumship and planning this podcast. At the time, I didn't have a voice to use and I just couldn't do it, but I was dreaming this up in my mind so that when I was able to speak comfortably again without strain and struggle, I was able to start this podcast. I did not know what it would become, and I didn't know where it would lead me, but it just felt like something I needed to do. And I also never imagined that 2.5 years later, I'd be working as a medium, that all of that study, and you have to understand, I ran out of money. I was not working. I didn't have an income. I had dribs and drabs, as they say, of income coming in from all of these little side hustle jobs. But then COVID hit. Then I couldn't do nanny work anymore. Then I couldn't drive for Lyft anymore. So then I just had nothing. So I decided I'm throwing all of my resources into the study of mediumship, taking classes and workshops on Zoom. And I just said, I'm putting it all on a credit card. And it all felt hopeless. I didn't know where I was going with it. I wasn't studying mediumship to make money. I just thought, well, there's no time like the present to do that. Cut to now, I'm back into voiceover. I can't do the volume that I was able to do at this time, but my life has changed so much for the better. And I just had that thought today that it seemed like losing my voice, when that's the one thing that I do well and that I have and that I love the most in terms of a career that I was really good at and that actually brings in a lot of income, it was gone. And with it went my identity to a degree, but it was more about the lack of stability and the security that really stressed me out. But now I look at my life, and this just hit me today, that I am now doing voiceover and doing mediumship and have this podcast I love. And I left a relationship that was no longer serving me. And I looked back and I was looking at the trajectory of everything. And it's been almost 3 years, maybe 2.5. And I'm like, I remember sobbing and saying, why, God, is this happening to me? I know this has to be a reason, but I cannot see any meaning in it. I just can't see where this is taking me. Every day was sobbing and feeling sick and being sick. And cut to 2.5 years later, I am happier than I've ever been in my entire life. Had I not had this happen to me, I probably maybe would have still been in the same relationship, which wasn't serving either of us. That's to be fair. He's a lovely person. We're still friends. There's no animosity. It's just that that relationship was holding us back from a lot of things. Just we just weren't in alignment. And I wouldn't have pursued mediumship. I wouldn't probably have ever started this podcast because I would have been so busy doing voiceover work. I used to do 10 hours a day, working, scrambling to get all my work done. And that's part of why I sustained an injury, because I was overusing my voice. And so that's an example of how you just look at something when it falls apart and you say, what can this be trying to teach me? And you may know there's a lesson in it, but it just feels elusive. And I just still didn't know for a long time. So there was this period of suffering and agony and emotional pain, having no idea what was next. And now I am so happy. And all that money I was worried about, it came back to me in other ways. It came back to me in ways I didn't expect. I did a lot of manifesting. For those of you that do believe in manifesting, I believe it is a powerful tool. If you don't believe in it from a spiritual perspective, you may believe in it from just the perspective of setting your intention, focusing on what you want, and training your brain to see the opportunity as it arises. So whichever way you look at it, I manifested everything I have right now to the point where I wrote down what I wanted on little pieces of paper 2 years ago and put them in a box. These little pieces of paper. Forgot about them, opened up that box recently and opened up each one and was like, this came true. This came true. I did get out of debt. That money, that windfall did come to me. The place where I live, I'm now out of that relationship. So I was able to move to the East Coast where I've wanted to be for years, but couldn't go. All of the things that I didn't even know how they would come together, they miraculously came together. So I want to encourage all of you to remain in trust and faith. And that is so hard to do. I know. My faith wavers all the time. But I found that when I call on my spirit guides and I ask for intervention, something a lot of you may know, but not all of you may know, is that spirit guides will not intervene unless you ask them to. We all have free will. You can still do what you want. We forget sometimes that we have spirit guides and we can ask them for help. Please intervene in this situation. Please intervene in this situation. I'm not asking them, fix this for me. I'm asking them to show me what the resolution is and what the lesson is. What can I do? Show me what I can do to be in more faith, to get myself out of this situation. And I found that whenever I do that, it's like the seas part, maybe not the next day. And that's the period in which we really have to stay grounded and trust and have faith. And that's the hardest thing to do. But I just want to encourage all of you, no matter what it takes. I do a lot of guided meditations to keep me in that, in the flow, I guess, to be in that flow where now I don't worry about, I don't look at the 3D and say, okay, today in my bank account, I don't have what I deem to be enough money in there. I now can look at it and say, okay, well, today, this is how much is in there. But it's okay because it always works out. It always works out. I'm always taken care of. I'm always provided for. I'm safe. And then I can be present in my life. And then I can be present for all the opportunities that show up. So I just wanted to impart again, there's so much fear out there. There's understandably, there's a lot of anxiety we all have, especially in these, I mean, violent, but also uncertain times financially. We are in a crisis, in an economic crisis, and it can be very hard not to feel afraid. So I just wanted to encourage that you take a breath, meditate if you need to. I would say meditate as often as you can. That really helps me a lot to keep my neurological system calm. Do everything you can in your power to stay centered and to remember. This is kind of a joke, but it's kind of serious. When a when something happens now that is unfavorable and looks, this isn't so good. I've been just saying, Shannon, we're living in a matrix. This is all a simulation. This is just Earth school. This is just a game. Not to say it doesn't matter and that you should just, flip everybody off and be like, I'm not paying my bills or whatever. But try to remember that this is temporary and we are visiting, and that you have spirit guides and you also have human support buddies. You have friends. All is not lost. Things can change at any moment. I also remember there was this person that I was dating, and I remember thinking, he is the one. He is what I want. That's it. Like, I've already decided. And I just knew it. I was like, this person checks all the boxes. I love everything about him. And we had dated years before. He wasn't ready for a relationship. He ended up in a 5-year relationship. So maybe he just wasn't ready for me. That's okay. And ended up reconvening, and it seemed like things were going forward. And then all of a sudden they just stopped. And I finally asked, kind of what's the deal here? And he just said, I'm just out of a 5-year relationship and not really looking for anything. So I just was so disappointed and so bummed out. And I was reading Alan Watts. I think it was The Way of Zen or Buddhism Plain and Simple. I don't know which one is his book off the top of my head. And it said, when something is happening that is not desirable, just sit there and say out loud, if you will, or in your head, this is just what's happening right now. This is just what's happening right now. This is what's happening right now. This is what's happening right now. And with that came sort of this sense of surrender where I was like, okay, this is just not meant for me. And you know what? Cut to years later, I ended up meeting my partner, was with him for almost 8 years. That person ended up getting married and having a beautiful child. And I knew, you know what? He wasn't my person. He's a lovely person, a really great person, but we weren't each other's person. And now I don't even think about him in that way anymore. I think about how at the time that seemed right. So also be open to other opportunities. Just always remember that we think we want something, but sometimes what we want isn't what's best for us. And we can't quite see that yet. So it's, we can't always get what we want, but we just might get what we need. And so I just wanted to remind you all that in these tough times, have faith, have heart, keep your chin up, know that the only thing constant is change. I keep throwing out all the cliches tonight, but the only thing constant is change, and things can change at any moment. People can come into your life, job opportunities can come into your life, health breakthroughs, all kinds of things can happen that you never expected. And all as a result of this deviated path. You thought you were on this path and this is where you wanted to go, but you never even considered that it could even be better. So when I do manifesting, which is every day, I journal, I meditate, I walk around my house. This is the joy of living alone. I walk through my house just saying affirmations out loud. I'm abundant. I am loved. I am love. I am love. I am light. I am healthy. I am balanced. I am a money magnet. It raises my vibration. It makes me feel really good. Sometimes I'll just listen to like Abraham Hicks videos or manifesting videos just to kind of get a pep talk. to kind of get myself in that frame of mind of positivity. And everything is working out in my favor. I might not see it yet. It may not be in the time frame that I want, but behind the scenes, more is happening than I understand. And I keep finding that if I can just look back at the trajectory of my life and see how it all played out, despite all of the tragedies, trauma, loss, which every single human being has experienced, there is always some kind of a, not to be trite or minimize the bigger things, but there's a silver lining. Not only a silver lining, there's an open door that we didn't see before. I am happier now. My mom and I went and saw the Long Island Medium live last week. I took my mom there to see her. And I have lived in LA. I lived in LA. I'm now in Virginia, but I lived in LA for 25 years. I have friends who are celebrities. I have, met many celebrities. I've seen many celebrities. I'm not easily starstruck. I mean, really, never have I seen someone and lost my mind. I was, it's always like, oh, there's so and so. I one night sat next to Steve Martin at dinner, and that was a really cool one. But when the Long Island Medium walked out on that stage, she was wearing green and pink floral, sparkly, like sequin dress that just sparkled in the lights. She was wearing these like baby pink stilettos with this tulle. Like for those of you who don't know what tulle is, because you're not into fashion, or it's like that ballet skirt material. And I burst into tears. Why did I burst into tears? Because I love Teresa, but that's not the only reason. The reason is I realized at that moment, everything's coming full circle. I used to watch her show, wishing I could do what she does, wishing. And as she started to read the crowd, I started to get spirit information, and I started to feel spirit. And suddenly I wanted to jump up there, and obviously I wouldn't have done that. But I suddenly felt like I'm getting something. I want to tell this person over here, their father's here, or, I'm getting the name Rick. I want to ask that person. I think it's for her. And I just thought, I could do what she's doing. I can do what she's doing. She may be the best of the best of the best. She was born seeing dead people. I mean, she's been seeing dead people, quote unquote, since she was little. But I realized that I used to just watch her with not envy, but really admiration and yeah, like envy. Like, I wish I could do that. And I am doing that now. And I realized, had it not been for her and some others, John Edward, for example, who inspired me to do this work, Tyler Henry, shout out, Matt Frazier, another shout out. All of it was coming full circle, and it's all because I lost my voice. I don't think I really would have had time to pursue this. I wouldn't have had time to think about whether it was possible. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I love all of you. I wish you all peace in this difficult time. It is difficult for some. I hope not all of you are feeling that so much, but I do wish all of you peace, vitality of health, love, joy, time with your loved ones, and all the best. I send you loving energy from my heart to yours. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and tune in. Continue to tune in, hit the bell notification so that you'll see when my videos go up, because there will be some. I'm sure there will be an avalanche once I get everybody on the calendar. So if you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, comment below, all the things. It helps the algorithm, helps get the message out there that this is a thing, that we're here, and that it helps me to reach more like-minded people, and maybe some people who aren't like-minded, but who are open-minded and might find it interesting. So thank you again for your support. I love you, and I will see you soon.